All right, we are live. I'm with Parker Stiles today, brother. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Well, excited to have you on, man. And I knew that I needed to have you on the day that we met at the boardroom mastermind. And I got to watch you talk about your business and what you're doing. And I was, most of the people in that room, right? You kind of get like awed by, like, wow, this is you're doing something right. And that's the whole idea with joining a group like that. But anyway, I knew I had to have you on to dive into what you've got going on. So I'm excited to do that today. But for people who don't know Parker, can you kind of just catch them up to speed, man? Who are you, and how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so I always knew that I wanted to get into real estate. I just had no idea what direction I wanted to go down, what road I wanted to go down for that. So I got a job out of college as a real estate agent in the commercial field. So as working with in the industrial warehouses, things like that. I did that for like 6 months or so. Ended up getting fired from that a couple months prior for being too entrepreneurial. That was actually what they told me. That's why I got let go.
Sounds about right.
I may or may not have been handwriting yellow letters at my desk here and there. So I don't know. Maybe I kind of pushed that. But I stumbled into flipping houses, not wholesaling, but rehabbing. And I wanted to be the rehabber. I wanted to be the guy buying from the wholesalers. I wanted the before and after pictures for whatever reason that was. I just kind of had that going for a couple years. We flipped a few houses, enough houses for me to realize that I hated working with contractors, basically. And then stumbled into wholesaling after that through going to some masterminds, some events. Matt Terrio was actually my first coach. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
He's
Matt,
in Las
but
Vegas, right?
yeah. So I went to one of his events out in California while I was doing some one-on-one coaching with him, and this wholesaling term, actually virtual wholesaling, was like the sexy term that was going around then. This was like 2016, so I got started in 2015 was my first full-time year. So it's coming up on a decade now. I had this property under contract. The first one that I had contracted took me 8 months to find my first deal. So all of you out there that are complaining that you haven't found a deal in 60 days, so it took me 8 months. You got to put in the grind. And I was going to buy it for a rehab. And then this guy was like, why don't you try and wholesale it? I'm like, well, how do you do that? And why would anybody want to buy it for more than what I paid for it? Because I know my numbers and I ran these formulas, and it says that I couldn't pay any more than this. And I pretty much paid, as much as I could. He's like, well, why are you negotiating for somebody that isn't you, that runs their numbers maybe completely different, that wants the property for something, for a totally different exit strategy, maybe something that you don't even know exists yet? That's a good point. So long story short, I went back, I marketed that property, and a couple weeks later I had like 18 grand in my checking account. And that was my first deal. And I was like, all right, let's go, baby. This is real. Before that, it was just a page out of a book or an episode from a podcast. I really didn't know if I could do it. I knew I had to do it. I didn't leave myself another option. But I didn't know how I was going to make it happen. And that was kind of that first moment.
That's incredible, man. And isn't that something when that first check hits your account, like that check, I don't care if it's a flip or a wholesale, it is the most important deal you'll ever do, because that's the proof that you probably needed to now, I can do this over and over and over and over.
It is. It really is. Before that, I didn't know motivated sellers existed. I just, everybody said who I needed to be talking with on these podcasts and books and stuff. And, none of the conversations were the type of conversations that they said I should be having. So I'm like, what am I doing? Wasting all my money on direct mail, cold calling, and I'm getting cussed out, all this stuff. And then one day, this guy called me 8 months later from a yellow letter that I'd shoved in his mailbox on the way home from work before I knew that was illegal. And he's like, he said these words to me. I remember he said, I grew up in this house. If you can figure out how to not let the city tear my house down, because they said they're going to tear it down if I don't fix it up, had a tear down lien on it.
Yep.
He said, I'll practically give it to you. This house just means too much to me.
Wow.
And I about dropped the phone, one, but two, I said, sir, I don't know how it was going to happen in 10 days. This first house, I'd never bought a house before. was like, sir, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. Um, let me go. I'll get back with you. And from there, it was just a frenzy the next like 8 days of calling. I've been going to all the RIA meetings. I've been doing, all the meetups and all the stuff, driving an hour in all directions to just meet as many people as possible, soak up as much as possible. And so I called on those resources. I said, I
Yep.
got one. What do I do? And that was kind of how we got led to that first transaction. I was buying it for a rehab, but ended up not rehabbing it.
What a complex first deal, man. I will always remember all the details and all the failing and all the lessons right through that
Yeah.
process. But I love how you tapped into your network. You're like, I'm not gonna try to figure this all out myself. I'm gonna immediately go to people who are already out there doing this and use those resources. And you saved the deal and you made how much money?
It was about 17.5, if I remember correctly.
Killer, killer. Yeah,
Pumped.
my first was I know, right? My first was like 22,000 and I ended up splitting it with somebody because I saw the value in the partnership, right? I brought somebody in, we split the deal,
Totally.
use his resources, huge win. Interestingly enough, we just had a deal that was going to demo and the city had already ordered the company to go demo the property. And so it was like past the point of like return. And so this buyer, he's worked with the city. Like this could be something for people listening to take away from this. I don't know from your experience, but like if the buyer files a suit, it stops everything, meaning it holds up the demo person who was paid to already do the demo from
Right.
even being able to move forward. And so that just happened. We just wholesaled the house this week, actually, that exact scenario. And the buyer's like, I've been here, done that before. I'm going to file a suit. Like, this is exactly what he's going to do. So, anybody who has that, that's a little tip to be able to slow down that process. And it's not a,
Nice.
yeah, yeah. So, anyway,
Well, while we're out throwing golden nuggets right now, I'll add one more thing to that. I posted this on my page a couple days ago, and really cool way to make some money on a deal when you think that all is lost is fire damage properties. Not when the fire's already happened, but when you're scheduled to close, and then you get a phone call from the seller saying the house burned down 3 days before you're supposed to rip your $20,000 assignment fee, right? And so what we've done, we're in one right now, and then we got paid from another one late last year. And so there's a clause in our contract that essentially allows us to take over the insurance policy after we make right by the seller with that financial obligation we already agreed to. So without getting too into the weeds, based on the full insurance payout, if they had good coverage, you use that to pay for the property, and then anything on top we get to keep. So we actually almost doubled our projected assignment fee based on proceeds that we got paid from the deal. And then you get the land as icing on the cake after you process the transaction.
that is insane, man. I saw that post and I'm like, I got to ask about this. So thank you for sharing that because I know a lot of people, I know I've lost a lot of money by not exercising even the roof insurance clause, right? Like being able to file a claim on behalf of the, and getting a new roof. Because how many times do we flip a property and like the buyer's like, I want a new roof. But
Yeah.
this takes it a step further and gives you the ability to collect the difference. And so that is just brilliant, man. Where did you hear that from? How did you find that out?
You know, it's been in my contract for years, and I just read through it and really gave no meaning to it until my probably for like 5 years, honestly,
That's
until the
amazing.
first house burned down.
Yep.
And I'm like, we almost sent a TNR. And I'm like, hold on, don't send it yet. I think there's something in my contract that mentions something about this. And I literally paid it no attention. And then I started doing some research on it, talking to some people, and they were like, yeah, that allows you to do X.
Was the seller surprised?
Yeah, it was a little weird of a conversation. They're like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, you can do what? I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, we lost the opportunity to make a sizable profit on this flip here. I've got marketing dollars and payroll dollars and all of these things associated with getting to this point, due diligence obligations, and now it's just gone. So like that's why we have the ability, as long as we get you what you were promised initially, then we can reap what is on top. Now, this is also if it's not a total loss, it's a good idea to bring in an outside private claims adjuster to fight for you to get the biggest payback possible. But if it's a full payout, it's not worth the time to do that.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, that's awesome. How long of a process was that or are you still going through it on the one you're getting paid out on?
The one I'm waiting on, we were still in the process, but the one we did last year, 90 days. 90 days. I mean, the check has to go to the seller, and then the seller has to write a check, and that those funds have to settle, and then they write a check, and then they send it to me, and then those funds, so there's a little bit of a process there. But I mean, hey, we were supposed to make about 20, and I think we made like 34, and learned something new in the process. So
that's an extra deal or two to the pipeline that you wouldn't have had that just not been there. But good stuff, dude. So that is a gold nugget. So make sure to take note of that. And I'm sure Parker, would be willing to send that to you guys once you get connected with him on the socials. But with that being said, man, I know that you are in a few different markets, and there's a ton to unpack, obviously, on a journey of sticking yellow letters in somebody's mailbox. And I've gotten yelled at for doing that when it was my direct mail service. It's so funny how people's brains think like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you came by. You took a picture of my house and you stuck this in my mailbox, right? Like, just like the things that you
Such an invasion of privacy. What do you do? What are you thinking?
It's just hilarious though, looking back at like the hustle and the grind that it takes to get this business off the ground. So like, what were you doing aside from the mailers, if anything, to kind of start to build some momentum? Because in this podcast, we talk a lot about starting, but also most people listening, they want to be able to get to the freedom. They want to be able to get to your business running, right? So let's talk about that transition of just starting and then that build up phase.
Yeah. So I'm not going to lie, I made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot of lessons from them. 30,000 foot view, started rehabbing some houses, flipped a few houses, found out about virtual wholesaling, kind of closed my eyes and picked the dot on the map, so to speak. That ended up being Charleston, South Carolina. And the reason that I went into virtual wholesaling was because I wanted to get myself outside of my own business. I knew I wanted to go do other things, other businesses, or just not have to go flipping houses. It's a glorified job. If you're not managing your marketing spend, watching your deal flow, running your KPIs, reading your KPIs and making decisions based on them, or hiring contractors for that next you're not making money. Yeah. So, it's cool at first, but it turns into, I'm not, I don't want to burst anybody's bubble here, but it turns into a glorified job. And so what I'm here for is deal flow to produce passive income. I mean, that's really the end all goal, is to convert active gains, capital gains, and convert them to passive streams. And so that is really the only reason I got into quote unquote wholesaling, was because I needed to control the deal for that to be possible. I didn't want to buy my rentals from other wholesalers or and pay the assignment fees, and that cuts into my margin. If I could go buy a deal and wholesale it for $40,000, imagine how much better of a rental return that would be. And as I learned more things as far as buying and selling on owner financing and other passive income strategies like that, it just compounds. So started with rehabbing, got into wholesaling virtually. I was living in Atlanta. Once I kind of got that running, I was like, why am I not doing this in Atlanta too? So I kind of had a system and a process developed there that was working. Nothing crazy. We were pumping out a deal or two a month, but it was systematized and I wasn't there. So that was cool. So I said, let's get it going in Atlanta now. Let's hire the same people. Let's put the same processes in Atlanta. A few years later, we brought on Columbia, South Carolina, kind of as a bolt-on to Charleston. And then we ended up, it's another story, but we ended up opening up an office in Charlotte last year, and kind of just been scaling all of those areas. That's been the main focus.
Excited to dive into that. So obviously there's a lot of lessons, and I'm sure it took you a while to really after dealing with contractors, realizing I'm not really making a whole lot of money for as many hours as I'm putting in, etc. Like then you shifted to wholesale, but then I'm sure there was a build up to that too, is like the proof of concept in Atlanta, and then I can just copy and paste. Like Atlanta's a huge market, right? Like
Yeah.
there's you know, you probably know guys, and I know guys in Atlanta who are doing 20 deals a month, 30, 40, 50 deals a month.
Yeah.
And so there's a huge like market cap for that market. But you decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to go and do this virtually in a couple other markets. Maybe I don't know if it was just like less competitive, or what the
I
decision
wanted to
was
go
that led to that.
tertiary, secondary.
Yep,
Yeah,
smart.
I wanted that less competitive market. I'll tell you, it wasn't me blindly picking, but it was someone else could have been blindly picking. It was basically at a mastermind. I met a data guy, and I was like, "Hey, I want to do this virtual wholesaling thing. Where should I go? You're the marketing data expert. Tell me where I should go." And whether he actually looked at a bunch of data and, gave me the right choice, or he could have just, closed his eyes and picked
Yeah,
somewhere. He said Charleston, South Carolina, or Knoxville, Tennessee.
interesting.
And I simply just said, well, the beach sounds like a more fun place to visit than Knoxville, so Charleston it is. I went down there and drove some neighborhoods and said, this looks good. Let's do it.
Yeah,
And over the following 3 years, I probably only went down there 4 or 5 times
yep,
total. So you just, it was cool to me that I could flip the houses and make the income that was surprising to me at the time without having to be there. And
yeah.
so, power of
Now
leverage.
it's cool, man. If you guys heard what he said there, right? Is like he didn't just, oh, this sounds good. Like it's a secondary market. I'll just over here. He found a data guy, and the data guy said, "Hey, this is the data." And it's funny because I did that complete opposite. I did what I'm saying not to do, and I picked a market because I'm like, "Oh, there's no competition here." But guess what? There's also no buyers there either. And
Uh,
ran into a data guy at a mastermind. I'm like, "Yeah, we've been running TV commercials and you know, uh, doing all this marketing in South Dakota." He's like, "Dude, that is the worst market in the country to run marketing, because on a wholesale front, there's no buyer. Like nobody's aggressively buying in that market." So anyway, follow the data. But then the other piece that I'm curious to dive into, man, is you said you opened up a physical office. So you're doing a lot of remote markets. I would love to hear your school of thought with that, because I've been really back and forth on this with my team, and I'm physically located in Las Vegas at my house right now, my office. And then I have a business operating in our Nebraska market, but I also have like a sublease on an office out here, and I'm like going back and forth about this, man, as far as managing a sales team. So show me like why you did that, and like what your take is here.
oh man, I I had a recruiter. I hired a full-time recruiter for our sales business, and we hired 52 acquisitions agents in 8 months. It was a loud revolving door type scenario, and it wasn't set up for virtual. I was following a specific model, and I'll save you the boring details. It did not work for virtual. My recruiter, though, had managed a 500 seat call floor, had massive experience in hiring and firing and managing and dealing in that type of environment. And the whole time he was just telling me, this is a talented individual that I happened to stumble across. And the whole time he was telling me, dude, if I can get my hands around necks, like I can get so much more out of them. I'm getting dropped on Zoom and they're not showing up. I mean, he had classes. We were doing Indeed virtual, basically interviews, group interviews with 10, 15, 20 people in them, basically recruiting in groves to come in and cold call for us. And then they had a tier, junior acquisitions, senior acquisitions, but they always started cold calling. And then they got the opportunity to start working, higher paid inbound leads, direct mail leads, PPC leads, things like that. And so we ended up shutting that down and pivoting. And I said, dude, let's do it. You're the guy. let's do the office. It's going to be in Charlotte because he lived in Charlotte. So we're going to research that market. We did a lot of research there, way more research than my Charleston pick. So we went into that, and we leased a space, and we got the stand-up desks and the monitors and all the stuff.
Like the sales floor, like that you see on movies, right? Like here's the stand-up desk and it's a sales floor.
Much smaller, but yeah.
Yeah.
Same idea. And because of that, we moved from 1099 to W-2. So a lot more expenses there with taxes and responsibilities and hiring and firing restrictions, things like that, stuff you got to hang on the walls, a whole new world.
Yeah.
But I also, if I was paying W-2, I didn't have to pay as high of commissions. So if they're 100% commission, like most of my team is, they're getting bigger rips on the deals. If it's W-2, is drastically lower, and they had a small salary. So I did the math, and after every $24,000 per month that an acquisitions agent would bring in, the company was making more money. And so I said, this at scale drastically affects my bottom line.
Okay. So that was part of the decision, and there's a lot more to it than that, though, right?
There's a lot more. I'm going to fast forward to the end. It was a right person, wrong seat situation as far as who was running that office.
Usually
he had a talent and skill set that did not match where I had him, and it was just a little bit. It wasn't even necessarily. It was both of us that maybe kind of improperly, thought where we each wanted to be. Where I wanted him to be and where he wanted to be, we're kind of, we're not on the same level playing field. But we didn't know that up front. We had to go through that experience to find that out. And we learned a lot from it. I don't have the office anymore. I'm in the process of shutting it down.
Interesting. Because I looked at your, obviously you're the CEO, so you're the visionary. So it sounds like the alignment in where you were headed wasn't the same, right? And that's, I mean, gosh, I don't know if you remember this, but Kent Clothier berated me when I was talking about
I do remember
my
this
dynamic, and I was just like, wow, I totally blew it. And like after that, I've made some huge changes since then, but like it has to be in alignment, and that's what you're telling me. It is you guys two different paths.
The other thing that wasn't in alignment, this is the other 50% to the reason why I'm shutting that down, is it wasn't really what I wanted. And so I always get asked this question at the end of interviews. It's like, the common question, what advice would you give to the new person? Some extent of that. And I'll go ahead and skip to it. It's just know what you want and get really, really clear on what you want, and don't falter from that. And I faltered from that. Like, get really clear, the income, the employees, virtual or in an office, and what does an office look like, and understand the true responsibilities to and drain on your resources and time of having to leave. I had worked virtual too long to go back. That's really what it was.
Yeah, man. And it's like we had the same consultant or something, right? We just talked before this. You and I had the same consultant as part of our journey. And the question that he asked me, and this is a question that I've been asked and a lot of people ask, is how do you define success? What do you want as the owner of your company? And a lot of people, myself included, and it sounds like maybe you too, and a lot of people listening, we try to do what the society wants for us, or like what the industry wants, or what's glorified, or what the sexy thing is. But at the end of the day, it's your life, it's your business, so you decide what you want. And it sounds like you've decided what that looks like for you. So I love to hear like what that is transpiring into. You shut the office down. What's next? Where are you heading?
So I basically had one overall company with two teams. I had this W-2 office team, and I had a 1099 sales team. And it was always just a little bit of extra noise that I didn't like, and different comp plans and bonus structures and all this different stuff. Yep. And I desperately, and if it was making a ton of money, don't get me wrong, I probably would still have it. But we were struggling with net. There's too many news. It was a new market, Charlotte. It was a new office, meaning I've been virtual forever. It was a new person running that office. right? That I was not there. I only went like 3 or 4 times, and I really should have been there. I should have moved there if I really wanted it to work for an extended period of time and then come back. But I wasn't willing to make that sacrifice. So, some people would say I shouldn't have done the office in the first place. But again, going back to, I thought I had the right person in the right seat. And going fast forward, I had the right person. He was just in the wrong seat. And I didn't like the office enough to replace that person and find somebody better. So we're shutting it down. This person is actually the GM of my company now in his new role. And what he excels at and loves doing and breathes life into him is optimization and efficiency, getting into the weeds. So you go look up what's the definition of a general manager in a business. And I didn't even know that title wasn't even something that was in my purview. But when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's him.
Yeah.
And so that's that. And it's freeing my time up a ton now, because a lot of those things are still are smaller scale CEO responsibilities that we have. We're still wearing a lot of those hats. I'm not doing acquisitions. I'm not managing the acquisitions. I'm not doing dispo. I'm not managing the dispo. I'm not doing transactional coordination. I mean, a deal can go from lead to signed contract to wire transfer, and I won't know what the address is, or it won't look familiar to me. Like, that's the goal. That was my goal initially. But now it is, how do I scale that and maintain margins, improve margins, and increase overall revenue, while again still keeping that efficiency? And until you have something of the general manager, operations manager sort, that's you as the business owner.
That's right.
This person loves spreadsheets. They love getting into the weeds. They love asking the questions of, hey, yes, it's working, but could we do it better? I'm like the, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I'm focusing on too many other things, that the little tweaking the knobs, improvements here and there weren't, I had trouble finding time for them. And now this person is getting paid to do it 365 days a year.
I love it, man. Man, it sounds like we went through the same type of progression with the aha of the dynamics weren't right. I mean, there's a lot of people who throw around fancy titles, right? Like, you're the CEO for your company. I'm the CEO for my company now. If you don't have a dedicated person wearing the hat that's in charge, and if it's overlap, like, it's just a disaster. And like, I've been through that before. And so what it sounds like is your GM is what most people would consider an operator, a integrator, right? Somebody
Integrator, yes.
who's like strategically working on all these things, fixing what's broken, the day-to-day operation. And then obviously from there you have other people in place who are reporting to that person, etc. So can you kind of break down, I heard you mention sales managers, break down what your team looks like today?
Yeah, so there's me and my wife. My wife focuses on the project management, CFO type responsibilities, paying all the bills, project management for contractors and stuff like that. We had the general manager that's focusing on the day to day. He is managing the effectiveness of my head of operations, as well as my sales manager and my dispositions coordinator. So he kind of goes down to those three. My sales manager is managing 6 virtual work from home acquisitions agents. My head of ops is focused on, another way to say her role is, head of transactional coordination, but she's a little bit more than that. HR, if we're taking down internal purchases, she's utilities, insurance. She's event planning. I'm going to Charleston and we're doing an office day. So, she's booking all the stuff, the hotels for people, Top Golf, all that type stuff. Quasi EA as well, you could say.
Sure.
And then we got an a dispositions coordinator that she used to do all of dispo and TC. And once we got to about 30 files, she was just pulling her hair out and, wanted to quit. She actually called me one day and crying and said, please, I need you to convince me not to quit, because
Wow.
it's just I love this job, but it's too much. I can't do it anymore. So
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of a lack of communication that I could have done better there with her, seeing some of that stuff, but she's tough and she wants to push through and she doesn't want to complain about stuff, but it got to that point. And so we scrambled and we hired a dispositions coordinator and got lucky on the first hire. We've got a great guy and she trained him up. And now he's kind of working more with my sales manager than with her, because that's just more of a sales job. But now she takes the ball, not when acquisitions gets it contracted. She gets it after it gets papered up with the buyer.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you for breaking that down. That's very helpful, I'm sure, for all the listeners as well.
And then we have 3 virtual assistants that are scattered in, helping in different areas. So I
Got
wanted
it.
to mention
Okay.
that as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And honestly, it sounds like your sales team is pretty much 100% driven based off of the commission. So what does that structure look like? And how has that been for your sales manager to manage people virtually? Because this is something that I haven't quite cracked the code on yet. So I'm curious, for honestly, selfishly myself here. I know
So
people are going to benefit.
I love that it worked out like this, but my sales manager he was an acquisitions agent for me for 5 years.
Beautiful.
And then he got promoted to sales manager from me. I had a sales manager. It didn't work out. Went back to me, and then I kind of built the processes and systems back the way that I wanted them to be. And then after he actually didn't want it initially, which was interesting. He wanted to stay acquisitions agent and just stay in his lane and run.
Because he was
And then
making good money. So
yeah,
why would he want to change that, right? Probably. Is that
it
what we
made
thought?
him, maybe it was a conversation, just something changed one day, and he saw the growth potential with it, and he wanted to do something different. So I started phasing him in to acquisitions agents over the period of 6 months. So I'd give him one. He'd do one-on-ones with that person. He'd do huddles with that person. He actually ran the huddle for everybody, but all the other responsibilities were just one at a time. And then once he had his grips, I'd give him another one and then give him another one and give him another one. Each time I gave him another one, he had the ability to make money off of their closings. So he's 100% commission on a 5% override from everybody that he manages. So we've done 2 million around that number, plus or minus the last couple years. And he makes his 5% on that. And so that's his structure. And the acquisitions agents are 12 to 20%
I like this.
of that deal. So they're 100% commission as well. But it goes from 12 to 20. So everybody's 12 when they come in. And if they hit their incentive, which for us is 40K at a month or 120K in a quarter, we give them the opportunity to catch it up, and we'll back pay if they do 100. If they have a fat March, but January and February we'll go back and catch up that extra 5%. So it'd be 17% total. And then seniors are, after they close a certain amount of revenue, for right now it's $500,000, they become a senior, and it goes 15 to 20.
Got it. Okay. So as they move up that, they're incentivized with a higher commission. Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Awesome, dude. Thank you for breaking that down. Everybody seems like they have a little bit different way of running this. And I heard you say 40. Does that grow obviously as they become a senior? Their expectations probably grows too, right? So what is your minimum expectation for your senior closers?
My seniors are 50. So 150 a quarter is 600K a year. I'm very happy if someone's closing 600K, if they're having a 600K a year. So that's where it's at. If they close 140K, they're making 15%. It still has healthy margins for me. And if I pay them the 20, it kind of averages out to where I'm somewhere in that. Well, I'll tell you, with everybody, I'm about 25% on my P&L for cost of goods sold commission. So that would be for acquisitions, sales management. TC gets a little rip, Dispo gets a little rip. So everybody rolled in, I'm at about that 23, 25% range.
That's really healthy. And it sounds like you're pretty much 100% wholesale then, or are you still doing some flips now? And I've heard you say creative finance. So what's that look like now? Has that changed? Is that subject to change, or are you pretty much focused on the
It's
same?
definitely changed. Not necessarily, but my mindset around it has changed a lot. We've got we have probably 4 flips going right now. And so essentially my wholesale business is just to create a conveyor belt of opportunities, basically. And then I want to cherry pick from that conveyor belt for flips, long-term notes, rental properties, things like that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing is when you create that acquisition arm, you can cherry pick the best deals, and that's also good for write-offs when you're making, some good chunks of change. So
Exactly. Yeah. So we've got like 51 is total pipeline right now between actively signed contracts and contracts that are in escrow, properties that I've purchased that are in the middle of being renovated. So kind of call that the sales the contracted pipeline. And then from that, we're just saying, should this be a novation? Should this be a fix and flip? Should this be a long-term note or rental? Do we want to, we started hard money lending a couple of years ago. So,
cool.
all of the buyers that are buying the wholesale deals, we're trying to get them to use our financing to keep everything in-house. And that's been really cool to kind of double dip on profit there.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my friends who've had a lot of success over 10 years, that's just like a natural progression, I feel like. It's a conversation that I just had today with one of my apartment investor buddies. And a lot of my friends are hard money lenders. So tell me about that. Like you're running, obviously you have a gym, but you're running this business. It's very ancillary, obviously, to what we do. But what's that look like? Like, I want to
I
know
love
the
it. First of
nitty-gritty. Like,
all,
yeah,
it's quiet. It's quiet money, man, and it's real money. I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not a little bit here, a little bit there. I'll tell you this: the P&L. Reviewing our P&L last year was a little bit cumbersome. And B, a little daunting. We'd make there were some months where we did 300,000, maybe a couple $300,000 months, and then you'd look at the expenses, and we spent 270, and we're like, how is that possible? Where did all the money go?
yeah.
With 10% margin. So, I mean, last year was, in my opinion, is difficult for a lot of people, but if you had to put it into a sentence, it was the year of working 3 times as hard to make less than half of what you would, normally make.
I'm really happy to hear somebody else say that because that's how I felt, and that's how a lot of my friends have felt. And for anybody, honestly, who is not saying that, like, I guess you just have a magic wand or something because,
Or they don't actually know how to read a profit and loss statement.
or they're just, not financially looking at the numbers correctly.
No. Not to say that, they're not, I mean, there's definitely people out there that crushed it, made a ton of money. There's always caveats, but as a general rule, real estate was tough last year.
It was.
But we learned a ton. We got stronger. We built better systems. Our culture, my favorite part, our culture drastically improved. Core values were really met. We let go of 2 people that just weren't a total fit. So we niched down and we got stronger. And none of the stuff that we did, we changed so many things last year for the better. They just didn't really show up as profit on the books, but they are this year. And so that's been really cool to see is the tide is turning, and all of that work. We always hear real estate goes in waves, business goes in waves. There's ups and downs, and this was probably, I've had a couple of these moments, but this is one of the clearest of like last year. The whole year was like head down, getting beat up, just boxed left and right. And like, you just feel like you're getting a win, and then it gets pulled back and taken away from you. You're just like, I can't win. Somebody put a Facebook post out there the other day. They're like, if once a week you don't want to just burn it down and go get a job at McDonald's, you're not entrepreneuring hard enough.
Pretty sure that was Brandon.
It was Brandon. Yeah.
Yep.
It was Brandon. I told him, I met with him the other day and said, dude, I saw that post and I've saved it in an iPhone note because I'm going to wait about 3 weeks and then I'm going to post that. That's a good one.
It is called the entrepreneur roller coaster, and we've all been there. But I'll tell you what, man, I was going through it when I attended the boardroom mastermind. I shared, all of what we were going through, and Kent told me exactly what to do. And I hate to even admit this, but I didn't listen to him. And I would have listened to him. I bet you had I came back the next quarter, because I would have had to stand in front of everybody, share the same thing. So accountability is key, but it's not really to dwell on it. It's to learn from those lessons and mistakes. And dude, how much better of a real estate investor are you since you went through that? I know I'm like way better since I went through that year.
I mean, we are operating smoother and more confidently with 50 deals under contract than we were with 25 last year.
Yep.
It's just we're ready. Like the wheels are greased. Let's freaking go. I mean, that's our mindset right now. Like my big thing right now is I want to spend more money on marketing, and I need it to produce better. That's one of our struggles right now
Better
is
ROI.
calls per lead and ROI on leads. Yeah, we're spending about $60,000 a month, and the ROI is just not where I want it to be. But again, that's cycles, and that's current real estate market, and that's interest rates, and it's sales conversion. There's a lot of knobs that we're focusing on tweaking here and there. And again, it goes back to that's business. That's, we're continually trying to figure out how we can get better. You said it a second ago. It's super important for being a part of, you want that feedback loop. I don't care if it's a mastermind, if it's a one-on-one coach that you have, if it's, your dad's friend that's, acting as a mentor for you, but you got to have something that acts as a feedback loop where you can, and that's just why I love masterminds, because it's set up, it's just really dialed in for this. You go there, you learn the right way to do something, you learn where you might be messing up, and then you go back, and for 3 months you focus on like 3, 4, or 5 specific things, not 15 things, just a few. You go back, you do them, you execute, and then you come back for the next quarter and you get drilled again and you put up your numbers. And I love Kent's deal. I love the boardroom mastermind. I've been a part of it for going on 8 years, mainly because the hot seats, you have to get up there, and numerically, you don't have to. If you're not, you're kidding yourself. You're hurting yourself.
Right.
But if you do it right, you are getting up there and numerically pulling your pants down in front of a group of savvy business owners.
Badasses.
And get ripped apart for 35 minutes.
Yeah.
And then go back and execute at home on all the stuff. You might have your tail between your legs, but like that's what you got to do. And so I hand a lot of my success to doing that for a 5-year period. I mean, the compounding growth that comes from doing that over and over and over and over and over. It's not sexy, but like if you haven't read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy,
great book.
Go pick that one up. But that's what's happening behind the scenes.
I love it, man. Well, this has been an absolute masterclass. So
fun,
guys, if you're getting fire from this podcast, please like it, share it, tell your friends about it. And by the way, we're not done yet, because I want to dive in a little bit more to the marketing component. And I know you're tweaking this and you're dialing this, and just as we all are, right, as things change. But I'm kind of curious, man. You're spending about 60 a month. I want to talk marketing, but I also want to bring it back to, how do you feed 6 acquisitions agents? Because I have 2, and I spend 60 a month. So maybe I'm drowning my acquisition agents, and maybe my expectations are too high and I don't have it diluted enough. But I'm curious on your perspective. Obviously, 60K, what's that get you for leads? And then how do you feed 6?
So we're around $290 average cost per lead, cost per net lead, not gross lead. Make that distinction there. Over all lead sources for the last couple years.
Can you break that down real quick? I know what the difference of that is, but for the listeners, it's the difference of a solicitation counted as a lead versus an actual opportunity, right?
A gross lead for us, let's just talk single out direct mail, would be anyone that calls in. Even if they're saying, take me off the list, I don't want an offer, That's a gross lead. A need to sell my house fast, PPL lead, or fast home offer or something like that. If it comes in and it's listed and just not a good opportunity, that's still a gross lead. A net lead for us is an opportunity. It actually could also be that listed lead that we don't think is an opportunity, but it's somebody that has a house that's interested in selling sometime in the next 12 months
They're a
and will
seller.
look at an offer. Yes.
Yep. Okay.
So that's to us a net lead, and we're over thousands of leads over the last few years. We're at it's just under, it's like 49% and some change, a net to gross ratio.
That's about spot on with the way I just measured it. I was telling my team, we're not measuring the leads anymore. I need to know how many leads I need to generate to get you this many net leads, but I'm focused on opportunities, and it was about 40%. So we're actually really
Yeah.
in line with that number. And so how many does 60 a month get you per month? Like, you could break it down per week, and then that'll help me wrap my head around to feed 6.
Yeah. So I want to get each person about 10 opportunities a
Okay.
week.
Okay.
And I'm a little under that right now. So we're digging into, all the leads in our database. So we're pushing calling, but I'll make this one calling on our pipeline stuff, calling on our, we have the status in Podio called rejected all offers. So after you've tried everything, you've tried cash floor, cash ceiling, novation or EPP, you've tried owner financing, you've tried a transfer to our listing agent, like nothing's working. We've got thousands of those in our database over the years. And so, we've got that in a dialer campaign. And so we're pushing for calls. I would say on average, they're making about 500 dials or so a week per agent. So they're not full-time cold callers, but they're in there spending an hour or two a day, working on what we call open opportunity leads. It could be rejected all offers. It could be initially not interested leads. It could be leads. We call them no contact made. We never got a hold of them after they came in. We also, if you're familiar with Tiffany and Josh High, we did go through their, I know you did as well. We went through their coaching, a lot of good stuff in there. And they call it UMBC kind of qualification. So urgency, motivation, ballpark, and price. That is how they, I'm sorry, the last one, C, is condition. Urgency, motivation, ballpark, price, and condition. Those are the 4 categories that they're using to kind of qualify a person to give them an offer. And we have UNBC NQ leads. So not the ones that didn't qualify. So this is something different that I do. I don't give everybody an offer that wants an offer like I used to. Mm-hmm. We have this category called UMBC NQ where we tell them, I'm sorry, I just don't think you're a good fit for us.
Kind of pull back a little bit, right?
Exactly. John Martinez going negative, pulling back, all that good stuff. And then we follow up on them on push. We go for the no and we push them away from us. And then we follow up on what their other thing was. Oh yeah, I want this. Hey, I don't think we're the right fit. I'm going to list it. Okay, great. Hey, I'll call you in a couple of weeks, see if you ended up listing it. And we don't drop that number, because as soon as you drop your number, you lose all your leverage.
That's right.
So that's another open opportunity category that they can call from. And every week we're tracking on a scorecard appointment set from new leads, and we're tracking appointment set from re-engaged leads. All of those open opportunity leads are re-engaged leads that they're calling on, and they're stirring up opportunity on old leads. And how much did that deal cost us that we closed from any open opportunity lead? It's found money. We already spent the money.
That's right.
It turned into nothing. So it just goes straight to the bottom line.
Yeah, it really sounds like you've dialed in, like plugging the gaps and the holes. I know that was a big thing that I learned through the training that we're talking about with results is, there's so many opportunities right in front of us that we missed because we didn't have a good way of staying in front of them. And this might sound really overwhelming for a lot of you guys. I know Parker and I are just kind of spitballing back and forth because, you've got a decade, I've got 7 years of experience doing this. And this didn't happen overnight. This happened from us losing our butts, falling on our face, and just keep moving forward, keep compounding and building the machine up. And so, dude, this has been awesome. I could talk this all day, seriously, every day. I love this stuff.
I know
But
people love to hear good lead sources, so I'll throw
yeah,
that
yeah,
out there.
please.
Just stuff that's working. So the biggest quantity of our deals, by no means like are these the only things working, but from top down, I would say direct mail. It's a tried and true. It's not the best ROI for us right now, but
What
it's
is it? Two and a half, three and a half?
making money. It's about 3 right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Over, multiple $100,000. So, at scale, it makes more sense. We've spent $120,000 on need to sell my house fast over the last 7-8 months or so. That's about a 3X as well. We're on 6 different radio stations in Charleston and Columbia.
I wanted to
And
dive into that one.
yeah,
How is the radio? Because that's the one channel I haven't dove into.
it always is the one marketing channel that like people that have been in it for a while haven't really gotten into, because it's kind of difficult to get into it. I actually took a course a while ago that isn't even around now, on kind of how to do it yourself, how to learn how to contact the stations, how to negotiate with them, what their terms and acronyms are, what a good discount is, and what retail price. It's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
And I started this about going on 5 years ago. And I'll tell you, it is a slow trickle of good leads. It's one of my lowest lead per contract strategy, or lead per deal strategy, meaning
Not a
it
high volume of
requires,
leads, but the good leads are coming in.
yeah, they don't seem to have a lot of competition. The direct mail leads and we're fighting tooth and nail, just getting scrap. Oh man, I just knocked over my mic over here. We're getting scrappy and to try and like win the deal on everything else. But when it's a TV lead or a radio lead, a lot of times they come with a lot less competition. So I'd love to be able to just ramp up. We do 25 60-second ads a week is our format. So every day, at least 5 60-second ads play. That's 25 a week, 100 a month. I have one station where it's pretty cheap. The lower the listenership, the cheaper the deal. They go off cumes. So it's a cume rating that each station has. And so I've got some low cume stations that I might only do there's one I did a deal the whole year last year.
Do you track every station differently with the number?
Yes, every station has its own tracking number. I've done some radio stations for 90 days I didn't get one phone call. And I'm like, how is that possible? But you got to have the tracking number different on every station. Otherwise you wouldn't know, where the success and failures are coming from.
Yep.
But yeah, they're big deals. Like I did one deal on one station for the whole year. It was like a $55,000 deal. Another one was a 72. And then I have one station that I spend like 35 grand a year on, that, we probably do 15 deals a year on, but that's the highest volume, and direct mail is going to blow that out of the water. So as far as scalability, it's been difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's what I've heard. And we did it for 6 months with billboards before we were running TV, and we got one deal from
Billboards are
the
tough.
billboard on the last day that we told them that we're not going to keep doing this. It was interesting, but how much do you spend on the 6 per month across the board?
Oh,
10,000, 15,000, just for some perspective there.
Oh man, I'd probably say 50,000 for all of them, 50 or 60,000 for all of them for the whole year.
Oh, for the whole year. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one station, my fattest station that's the biggest spend is like $3,000 a month. So that's 36 grand a year. It's really not a ton, which is why I haven't cut some of the stations. Like you think, it only brought me one deal in 12 months. And then the year before that, it brought me 2 deals, but it's like still a 6X return. And as long as it's not so heavy to where it's killing your cash flow, on a monthly basis. Like as long as you can support the, the lift until you get to that deal, then everything works out. All my radio stations seem to be 5+X. It's
Solid.
just lower volume, but less competition, and there's some good profit margins in there. Keep in mind, the volume is also in a low population market. These are Charleston and Columbia markets where there's not as much population. I have not done radio in Atlanta because I have been kind of skittish on the prices. I'd be paying way more. I might be paying $100,000 a year for an awesome station, for 25, 60-second ads a week. And is there an ROI there that's 5X? I don't know. 3X? I don't know. Will it make money? I don't know. So I haven't gone in those waters yet.
And that's one thing I wanted to touch on is you're in a few different markets, right? I know for sure there's got to be a variance that one market is clearly maybe a better producer than another market. Have you found that? And is that something that you take into consideration and weigh out? Is it worth it to be in all three?
If you have a market that you like, that you live in, that has the ability to go do $1 million a year gross, definitely go do that first before you start splitting up into different markets. Yep. I could do over $2 million a year in just Atlanta, but I'm doing it in 3 markets. I'm not really scaling out Charlotte. I think we're going to kind of, I know it now, so we may go back there, but my points of focus are trying to get to 10 deals a month in each of my Charleston, Columbia, and Atlanta markets to where we're doing 30 deals a month. That's, I mean, that feeds the family, so to speak. Like I don't need to, that I'd be totally fine with that. I don't need to go to another market. I'll leave it at simplicity is key. So the more markets, you got another, more marketing vendors to learn. You've got new zip codes to learn that you want to stay away from. You've got additional KPIs. You have to track everything that you are already tracking. You have to track every single one of those things in additional time. So
underwriting, your team has to learn how to underwrite these deals now too in different markets.
You got to build another buyer's list. It may not be as easy as just getting an investor lift account and selling all your deals in that area. There's just nuances to all of these different areas.
Yeah, it's so good, man. And I've been through it before. I've opened up shop in Orlando. I'm running TV in Las Vegas, and like I can tell you from experience, like the deals are a lot harder to find these bigger markets to get because you have so much more competition, but they're way easier to sell. So it's like the trade-off, like which one are you the best at and which one are you going to focus on? And simplicity is the key. And so
the positive side of why I like the markets that I'm in is Atlanta, easy to sell a lot of that stuff for the same reason you just mentioned. Yep. Columbia, a little bit more difficult, but it's a cash flow market. Yep. Charleston and Atlanta are more of an appreciation market. So I have rentals in all of the areas, but the ones in Charleston and Atlanta appreciate way more. The ones in Columbia, I can get into way cheaper and have better cash on cash returns. And so it's a good mix. Plus we started, going to the creative finance. I don't know if we have time or how you want to go down that road, but it's a great market in those cheaper markets for creative financing, especially when it comes to reselling properties that we've purchased cash and selling them on owner financing to hold that private note for cash flow.
Yeah. Even with the higher interest rates, like it makes sense to do that. And I've went down that path a little bit. So I think the key though, because we could talk for another 30 minutes just on creative finance, and we're running low on time, so we won't go too deep in that. But I guess the key though is for people to understand, in order to really scale and maximize and not just become a one-trick pony, is you do need to have the ability to be able to see a deal and figure out what's the highest and best use of this deal going to be. And then obviously for writing off income and taxes and stuff like that helps to hold some properties too. It's kind of that balancing act, right?
A little nugget would be systematize it. So if you have 3 different exit strategies when you get a property under contract that you want to analyze, I used to I'd spend 30, 60 minutes trying to figure out which one made the most sense. Yeah. And then I just built a calculator and a Word document SOP of, if it's this, it's going to go this way, but it also has to have, so I guess exact examples would be, if I can't 2.5x what I would make on the wholesale on a flip, I'm not going to flip it. If the flip is not a minimum of this profit, I'm going to push it back to wholesale. This also gives us what we call our wholesale threshold price. So we will always put it out there to our list. However, if it goes below this price, the dispositions coordinator has to contact me and say, hey, the only offer I have is below our threshold. Do you want me to take it, or do you want to take this one down internally? Because I've identified that if we have to wholesale it for lower than this number, then these exit strategies or this exit strategy would make more sense, whether that's a note, a wholesale, a rehab, a rental, etc.
I love that. Yeah. It's really making the decision-making process crystal clear based on what the actual numbers are on the spreadsheet. So I like that. And it took me 7 years to figure that one out. I just figured that one out this last year. So uh, speaking of which, for people who are like looking to scale their business, to dial in these things, right? You had mentioned you're offering some help and support for those types of people. Can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe tell people how they can learn more about what you got going on and connect with you there?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm really involved in the growth of my business, so I don't do a lot of coaching. I have a couple clients, and I'd have room to coach a couple more people, but I'm very specific about like who I want to spend my time with. I don't mean this in a mean way, and everybody's got to start somewhere. But I have no interest in teaching somebody how to set up their first direct mail campaign or learn marketing 101, stuff like that. And don't get like, this is a sales and marketing business. You're not in real estate if you're trying to build a wholesaling business. So that's super important. I'm just not your guy there. But if you have a hobby that's making real money and you want to turn that hobby into a business where you can make more and then also pull yourself away from it, hand those hats off to other people and build a structure like we've been talking about today, that's something that we could talk about to see if we're a fit for each other. It's just not something at this point in my life that I'm really trying to spend a ton of time on, unless it's just like, this person is an awesome fit and I think I can really make an impact here. Let's go.
I love it. And how do they connect with you? Where can they find you?
I'm not on a bunch of social media platforms. I'm working on that, but let's say just Facebook. Message me, Parker Stiles, and we can get connected there. I try and put some good stuff out there, content wise, as far as gives, and working on my. I love the podcast game that you've got going, and working on the video content. That's step 2. But yeah, Parker Stiles on Facebook. I'd love to chat with you.
I love it, man. So yeah, go connect with Parker. I follow you, man. That's how I learned about the insurance thing, and really appreciate you sharing your nuggets and wisdom. This has been phenomenal. And guys, I know you got value from this, so please do us both a favor. Share this out to a friend. Tell some people about it. Leave a review. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what your biggest golden nugget was, because I know we dropped a lot here today. So with that being said, my friend, what last thoughts do you want to leave listeners with today?
Man, this is a simple business, but it's not easy. So go out there, don't try and recreate the wheel, and learn the process. I like, get somebody that has done it way past where you are now, and then go find somebody that is just a year or two ahead of you right now, and blend those two pieces of advice together. A lot of people just go straight to the guru type mentor. And while that is okay sometimes, the advice is not always as granular or as acceptable that then you'd get from somebody who just got out of the trenches you're in now 1 or 2 years ago. So I like blending those two pieces of advice together, but don't recreate the wheel, but also burn the boats. Don't give yourself a plan B, because it's just not easy.
Boom. You heard it here first, man. Parker, man, it's been awesome. This has been a lot of fun. and really looking forward to watching your journey continue. And go follow Parker. And that is all for today.
Appreciate it, Michael.
Yep. Thanks, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
See y'all.